And so we'll have an intimate conversation, which is exciting because a lot of today's presentation about workforce and workforce strategies and what we're doing, it's also a space to ideate and kind of crowdsource ideas as well, right? So the foundation, we have some strategies, but everyone has their own thoughts and ideas. And so we can really start to think through these ideas together. Okay, some more folks are joining, yay. Oh, Beth is joining, fun. All right, Beth is getting her audio connected. Hi, Beth, welcome.
Good morning.
There she is. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome, Beth. We were just kind of slowly getting started because we were trying to allow time for folks to jump into this session. So we just renamed ourselves with our name and our pronouns and what agency we're with. So Beth, in the chat box, if you can share with folks your name, your title, and what agency you're with, just so we can kind of get to know who's in the room.
Great.
And then also in the chat box, okay, let me pause and say, my name is Malia Villareal. For those of you who don't know me, I know a lot of you in this room, but I'm with the California Teaching Fellows Foundation, and we're based out of the Central Valley in the Fresno area. And we serve in multiple communities, which I'll kind of go into in a bit. And I do public and strategic development for the foundation. So I help us build out new pathways and new kind of strategic initiatives. And then I also do a lot of policy and advocacy work to talk about workforce, expanded learning, and really uplifting what's happening at the ground level and uplift that to our elected officials. So today, that's what today's conversation is going to be interactive, because I also want to learn from you and hear from you as well. So that way we can take these stories and uplift them where needed as well. So in the chat box, to get to know each other a little bit more before we jump into it, is will you put what communities you serve, meaning is it rural communities, is it urban, large cities, small cities, just so we can kind of get to know, what are the different types of communities that we serve? Because when we think about workforce strategies, it has to be really localized, right? Something that's going to work in LA is not going to necessarily work for Beth in her rural areas up in Northern California. And with the foundation, we serve both rural and urban, which I'll get into in a bit. And we found that there's different strategies that are needed for different communities. So I really want to keep that at the forefront as we're going through this work. So, okay, Beth serving in rural communities. Awesome. Oscar, urban, Sacramento region, North Sacramento, Twin Rivers Unified. Awesome. Martha, so we have San Jose, Campbell, and Saratoga, so very urban. Okay, awesome. All right. So I think we're going to just go ahead and jump into it. And like I said before, we may have more folks joining and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. All right, let me get my PowerPoint clicked on. Okay, so for today's agenda, we're going to do the welcome and introductions, which you already started doing today. I'll do an overview of CTFF, or California Teaching Fellows Foundation, and some of the lessons learned we had this year when it comes to workforce issues. And then we'll go into pre-employment strategies, employment strategies, and then a little bit on offboarding strategies. Oh, yay, we have more folks joining, yay. And at the very end, we're going to talk about how do we address the barriers, whether they're perceived or real, to get this work done, right? So there's going to be a lot of ideas thrown at us today and we'll discuss, but they're only as good as we're able to implement, right? And we're all stretched really thin, and our teams are lean, and we're dealing with turnover and retention and all these things. So I really want to make sure we spend some time talking about those barriers. Let's see. And Laura, welcome. Okay. let me see. I want to make sure that Laura got a chance to look at the agenda. And Laura, when you have a moment, if you can share in the chat box your name, title, agency, and what communities you serve. So if they're urban or rural, we're just trying to get to know the folks in the chat and who's in the room. Okay. So moving on. So I was up last night thinking through this workshop and this idea of like these barriers and what happens when we typically share new ideas and innovations is that we're all humans and we all go through this process, especially right now when we're overwhelmed with hearing an idea. And then there's this little voice that always tells us like, yeah, but, right? Like we all do that. It's like, oh, that's a good idea, but yeah, but, and that is just constant dialogue that's happening in our brains. And so we're going to be strategic on making sure to write these down today. So we know what are those barriers happening in our brain, because what happens subconsciously is really going to stop us from pushing it forward, right? So some of these barriers, because our brains automatically say the yeah buts, they may stop us and make us believe that it's actually not possible to get this done. So get a piece of paper out or post-it notes, and I want you to make the T, right? And on one side, this is going to be all ideas or strategies that trigger you to say yeah but, and write down what is that inner dialogue that's happening with that idea. So say we talk about we'll talk a little bit about high school pathway implementation, right? So an example would be high school pathways, and then yeah but, right? Like, yeah, that would be crazy, that would be great, but, and then maybe in your brain you're thinking like, who's going to do that at my agency, right? So write down on the right side, on the yeah buts, all the things that come to you. Don't judge it, don't try to filter it, right? Like, let's really be honest with what's coming up inside of us for two reasons. One, so we can actually address what's going on inside of us to move the work forward. And then two, at the end, we're going to share, and like I said before, the May revise of the governor's budget is about to come out, and we need to uplift these stories as well. Okay, so it's kind of twofold with the yeah buts. Okay, so so if in the chat box you can say I commit, so that way it shows me that you're committed to writing the yeah buts, because this is vulnerable, right? And it's easy to kind of be in a workshop and you know, you have a lot going on, but I really hope that you're present here. So in the chat box, if you could say I commit, so that way we all hold each other accountable. I am also going to do I commit, because I'm going to hear ideas from you folks, and I know I'm human and this comes up for me all the time. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're going to jump right into a little bit about the organization and some lessons learned. So these are just some data points we pulled from our annual report from last year. And the reason we share this slide is actually, I'm gonna take a moment. Oh, we have more coming in, yay. So we have some people from California Teaching Fellows here, but has anyone else in this room seen a California Teaching Fellows presentation or know very much about the agency? Just, you can throw it in the chat box, because I want to kind of gauge. I don't want to reinvent the wheel or tell you things that you already know about the agency. Laura, no. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so for the California Teaching Fellows Foundation, we serve in Fresno, Tulare, Merced, Madera, and Kings counties, and we're actually going to be up north soon too, but for the most part, this is where we serve. And they're both rural and urban communities. So we have rural communities that are, you know, a one-stop sign town, only PO boxes, no access to internet, food deserts, right? Water deserts. But we also serve in urban. People don't realize that Fresno is big, and actually it's bigger than Sacramento. It's bigger than Miami and Atlanta, and people don't realize those things. So Fresno is very urban and has a lot of the same challenges as other urban areas. So this is just, like I said, a snapshot of who we are. And I hope this is important, so that way everyone can take a nugget home with you today, right? Because I've been in so many workshops where the yeah buts come out. I'm like, that's great, but that works for the cities, or that's great, but we're not in a, or, you know, rural community. So hopefully today we can address both strategies. Okay. So moving on to the next, let me check my timing really quick. Okay. And here. Okay. So turnover this year, I mean, turnover is not a new concept, I don't think, for anyone. But what we found this year is that turnover as of the third quarter was already at 40%. And we were projected to get up to 60% turnover this year. And before, just context, we would be in the 30 to 40% range, which is pretty normal and average for expanded learning. We know that there's high turnover, right? That's happening. So for the foundation, we just found that it was like astronomical amount of turnover happening, more than we had ever even could fathom, I think, in the past. And I'm sure we're not the only agency who is dealing with this. And turnover is an important metric, right, to measure and to be aware of. So if you're not aware of your turnover numbers or your retention strategies, ask your team, right? And if you do have access to turnover numbers, be prepared to share that with your team so they understand, where is turnover happening? Why are people leaving? Because it takes a team and group effort to really retain people, right? Like they say that people leave a lot of times is, right now there's a plethora of reasons, but a lot of times it's the management. It could be, right? There's so many different reasons folks could be leaving. So turnover is an important metric for the whole team to really look at. So teaching fellows in our team, right, is like, how do we really disseminate our turnover information with middle management to site coordinators, and what meaningful information can we be sharing, right? So this is a little bit about turnover with the foundation, so hyper for sure. So this next slide is about some data that we collect, right? So we, as a foundation, all of our trainings once a month, we send a survey out to our teaching fellows and we ask them, right, how are they doing? What can we be doing better? Are we supporting them in their career goals? And what we find is that we're really high that they would recommend the foundation. They love working for the foundation and it's meaningful work, right? But people are still leaving, right? People are still leaving. Okay, sorry, I was just got a notification that we have more friends joining. Yay. And so what we found was for our exit survey or our stay survey, we asked why folks were leaving, and 46% of them said that it was either pay, schedule, or flexibility, which I think is very obvious, right? That people want to be paid more right now. They need their schedule conflicts, or they need flexibility because of multiple reasons of why folks are wanting flexibility. But one area of opportunity we found to improve was our exit survey lumped all three together. So it didn't really tell us, right? Is it the pay? Is it really the pay? Or is it maybe schedule issues or flexibility because they have families and second jobs or school or whatever the case is? So we really started nitpicking kind of every operation of the organization that we do to really illuminate and support the retention and the onboarding processes. Okay, so one thing to look out for your agency is an exit survey. If you're not doing an exit survey, definitely want to start doing that, but really fine tune the questions that you're asking so you can get the information you need. Okay, moving along. Okay, so what shifts do we need to make in this moment, right? Let me make sure and check here. Okay. So what shifts is the foundation doing? We're going to start with the pre-employment section of kind of the employment pathway, if you will. So some of the strategies we're looking at is really, we're focusing a lot on high school pathways. And there's a lot of different pathways that you can look into as well. And here is a list of different types of fundings or programs you can look into. So AmeriCorps, California and California Volunteers has AmeriCorps and College Corps going on right now, and they're getting federal funding and they keep investing state dollars into AmeriCorps and College Corps. Some folks get a little intimidated when it comes to AmeriCorps because it's a lot of tracking, but it's another source of revenue. It's a great partnership to have. How do I say it? It also can uplift and help you brand in the community because people know AmeriCorps, right? So for the California Teaching Fellows Foundation, like some people are like, who is that? What is, I don't know what that is. But AmeriCorps, they're like, oh, okay, I got you. That's really cool. And it's really seen in a high esteem. So there's a great partnership that can happen. So what we're doing with our new AmeriCorps grant is we're using it to pay, well, they're volunteers, but to give high school students an opportunity to volunteer, work with us, start to get early integration, and then they can earn a living stipend and their education stipend as well. So it's a great partnership and it's a great way to fund your high school pipeline piece. College Corps is through the universities, and there's universities up and down the state of California. I know Sac State has College Corps, Fresno State does too. Now this is a tricky one because what it is really similar to AmeriCorps, where you get an education stipend and living stipend. And a lot of the times it's to work with youth in expanded kind of learning or tutoring. So the college or university, you could either do a partnership with, or it's something to be aware of that they may be trying to find folks as well to work in expanded learning programs. So something that we're learning. And it's going to be different in every community, right? But something to look into. Also, pre-apprenticeships is something we're looking into as well. So you may have local community colleges that have an apprenticeship, a lot of early childhood apprenticeships out there. And with pre-apprenticeships, you could look into linking it up and doing a high school pipeline or the pre-employment piece, and then linking it up to another apprenticeship that's already going on in your communities. Be on the lookout from CAN and others really looking at apprenticeship models and expanded learning, because that is something we may see more happening in the years to come, and something to look into yourself. And you could always, chat with myself or others working on pre-apprenticeship work, and we can get you connected there. But a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of funding there. Another piece that we're looking at is partnering with, we partner with CTE programs, so career tech education. With the teaching shortage emergencies, there's a lot of future educator pipelines or CTE programs, early childhood and childcare CTE programs. And so there's funding there and programming already happening. And so we've been linking up, and some of them, they have funding, right? So there's different workforce dollars, there's strong workforce dollars, and then K through 16 collaboratives is a new state budget line item that was created after the Central Valley kind of model, but you're going to see that happening in different regions as well. So be aware of the K through 16 collaboratives, which means it's colleges and school districts who are really looking at streamlining certain work. And a lot of them, they're working on pathway work and educator pathway, early ed pathways, and why can't expanded learning be a part of that conversation, right? So that's another opportunity. And then dual enrollment, right? If you folks can start getting college credits and getting workforce experience, and after school, it's a great fit for CT and dual enrollment. We have a lot of K through 12 partnerships, and a lot of our school districts are super excited about their high school students getting an opportunity to get hands-on experience, maybe get paid experience, get some training, professional development, paraprofessional exam. And I'll get into a little bit more about what the high school pipelines piece look like. And then what we found is peer-to-peer mentorship is working really well to help get folks excited about the work, because I think sometimes working with kids is scary to people, or they don't know what that entails. What is after school? But if you can do peer-to-peer, like high school to middle school, or your staff to high school or middle school, then if they see folks that look like them and are from their communities, they may find more excitement, right, going into the program. So moving along. So when it comes to our high school pipeline strategies, we really look at early integration with these high school students for multiple reasons. One is, it's like I said, it's an easy way to get them excited about the work and engaged in the work before they even start working for you, right? You can also speed up the onboarding process if you start to train them up early, right? Get them para-certified if they can early, help them with the application support, help them with resumes and interviews, right? It's like really supporting and working with the school districts. They love it. And you're developing this workforce. I mean, it's a great opportunity. So some examples of what we've done is we have our monthly Teaching Fellow Academies where our staff go to. We did a keynote And we invited our high school students. We invited, gosh, it was like over 200 high school students signed up for it. And they joined the keynote with our workforce. And our workforce in the chat box is like, oh, welcome. This is going to be the best first job ever. Like, so happy you're here. So they can already start to feel the love and the vibe of expanded learning, because it's magical once you're a part of it, right? We all know that. And so we invited them there. And then what we did was we showed them how to apply. Where are the links? What does that look like? You know, the ins and outs of actually applying, because there's a lot of perceived barriers, right? The yeah, buts, right? For folks trying to join our agencies. But if we can walk them through it and do it with them in these spaces, then they're going to be more likely to go through with it. We got them paraprofessional certified. So we proctored the para exam and we got them certified right away so they can start, working with kids. And then with the follow up to that is we did interviews and a hiring fair. So the very next weekend, we did a hiring fair. We said, hey, come and interview with us. We want to get to know you. And like on the spot, we can get them hired. So we can get them hired early on and on the spot, which is exciting for them while they're still in high school. And like I said, those K through 6 or K through 12 partners really love this opportunity for their students. And then actually later today, we're going to do a signing day with these future fellows, what we call our future fellows, which is our high school students. So they're going to come to Fresno State. Our team is going to be there. We're going to be like, welcome, join us. And they're going to have their graduation stole. We're going to say, take a seat and sign your paperwork and take pictures of them and really make them feel excited to be a part of the agency, because we know with this labor market issues, we have to create magical experiences for these folks. We just do, right? And I think a lot of the yeah buts come in this space. And like, where is the time going to come from? But we have to invest early on for the bigger goals moving down the road, right? Like we have the leaky bucket. I feel like it's not even a leaky bucket. It's a strainer where water, like our people are just going straight through, right? Like they're not even staying. So we have to invest to really get them to stay. Right. Okay. So we were going to do breakout rooms, but since we have a small intimate group, Lupita, can you drop the Jamboard in the chat? And so what we're going to do is we're just going to do it together and we're going to ideate together, right? So I shared some ideas when it came to pre-employment strategies, and now is the time to really crowd surf. Ideas. So we'll throw the chat box, or in the chat box, we'll throw the Jamboard and we'll go to the very first slide. And I'll invite folks to unmute and to share their ideas. And let's just get down as many ideas as we can to share with each other. So does anyone else have pre-employment strategies or pipeline strategies that you all are doing?
Sorry, my organization, we've tried a lot of trial and error on different recruitment efforts. We've tried to do some advertising in school buses across, regular buses across Sacramento region. As a nonprofit, we're able to get a discount. We've also been trying to just have more presence in social media, specifically like in TikTok. We've also done an innovative effort that's just started called a street team. This is something new to me. From my understanding, it's just a group of our employees that go to a specific location in Sacramento and they advertise it and people can come and just hang out, talk to them about what the job entails. I know we've also have to overcome the paraprofessional exam, the NCLB. We've organized a dedicated person that supports with tutoring services as an option. And then also I'm excited that we're now able to have a full-time recruitment manager person for the upcoming year. So I'm in this workshop specifically to get notes and be able to create a strategic recruitment and outreach plan for this upcoming year.
Awesome. Yes, strategic recruitment. Love it. Trying to take these notes too. Thank you for sharing. And I don't know what, I had a slide and I don't know how I skipped over and maybe you all saw it, but we invested a lot of money in digital marketing during the pandemic because we thought this is the only way and that's where people are. So let's, so we increased our budget by like 80%, 86% digitally, and we only yielded 6% more applications. But what we found was when we really started to look at the onboarding process. So our application was way too confusing, took too much time. I didn't even want to do it, let alone other people. They're like, next. I can do in and out way easier, right? I can apply for a job on LinkedIn with one button and just submitting it. So we streamlined that process in our onboarding process. And through those two internal things, we increased our application completion by like 90% and our actual jobs offered by like 99%. So it was internal. It wasn't even the digital marketing ramping up. So each community is going to be very different, but it was something very new to us. Another thing that we found was that our rural communities were having less issues with staffing as opposed to urban, because we think urban communities have more options to do like Uber Eats, right? Or these other kind of side gig jobs that are more flexible and pay well versus our urban or rural communities. Rural communities used to be our hardest places to staff. But our rural communities also, those school districts were committing to higher wages too than our urban, which was exciting to see. They were the first to move. So I don't, like I said, I had that slide on here and it'll be in your resource guide. And I don't know what, I must have double clicked and passed that slide. But thank you, Oscar, for sharing. Does anyone else want to jump off or share ideas?
The ones that we've mostly done have been just participating in local hiring fairs and also partnering with our local workforce development board. So they've been doing, we gave them our job description and they've been actually going through their thousands and thousands of resumes that they have from just the local area and seeing which ones, sorry about that, and seeing which ones would actually, sorry, that happens all day, to see which ones would qualify for our job or who would be a perfect fit for our, job needs, if you will. And so if once they sort through their thousands of applications, they just forward those resumes to us to do like an official interview.
Yeah, thank you. Workforce boards and communities can be a great asset. We haven't figured out how to really optimize that partnership. So thank you for sharing, Laura. Has anyone else had experience with their WIBs or workforce boards in their communities? Okay, awesome. All right, so street teams, local workforce. Okay, I think I'm repeating post-it notes. Okay. And does everyone see the Jamboard for other ideas as well? So TikTok recruitment videos. Another idea that came out from a national conversation was this idea of putting collective social media accounts together. So maybe it could be regionally, and then you kind of are tag teaming this social media to really get a lot of people to pay attention, and tag teaming this like copywriting or what it takes to actually, create these types of videos. Or they could be, training videos, like quick tips, right, on TikTok. And it's just another fun way to get in front of folks. And a lot of that, like we said before, is like building that loyalty early on, right, and engagement. Any other thoughts or ideas before we move on to the next section? Okay, so I'm going to move along and we can continue these conversations as well. And the next section will be about like employment best practices. And there, I think we'll have a lot of a meatier conversation as well. So let me do this. All right, do you all see the presentation? Awesome. Okay, So let's jump into employment best practices. So I'm going to go over high level some strategies that we're looking at, and then I'll kind of go into more detail of what some of these actually mean or what this means to us. So one thing was the foundation, we always employed college students only. They had to be enrolled in 6 units or more, but we found that folks have different seasons in their life, right? Where they're maybe in college and may not be in college. And so we really started to drill down and creating different pathways in our agency that really meets the needs of multiple folks. And we started accepting folks who are not enrolled in college. So then you could really start to develop programs and training. So when folks come into your agency, it's not just a job, right? They feel like they're being invested in, that you care about their outcomes, that you care about their development, right? And where they're going, because, you know, this new workforce, especially this kind of wage range is they don't want to be a part of a machine anymore, right? And that's not going to change. Folks are saying like, I am a human. I want to be treated like a human. I have my own wants and needs and seasons in life. And I want to be seen and noticed and recognized for that. So for the agency, we're really looking internally at building different pathways within our own agency, meeting the folks where they're at. So if you're enrolled in college or not, if you're in college, but you don't know what major you're in, and then if you're in college, but you know you want to pursue education, then how do we support you on that pathway? And so then they'll stay with us and then beyond, right? So really being intentional. What is their training going to look like, right? What are the different support systems that we're going to offer? So that's something that we're looking internally at the organization. Obviously increase wages, right? Right now we're about $17 an hour. And we're finding that it does excite some folks in our community, maybe different than Sacramento, right? Where cost of living is higher, I think, than the Central Valley. But, you know, with inflation happening and gas prices rising, we don't even know if 17 is going to do it for us here. So with your own agency, you know, those may be things you need to think through. It's a lot of advocacy with our school district partners. And I feel like that's another yeah, but, right? Increasing wages. But our districts, there's a lot of barriers, right? With our partners or our LEAs or unions or whatever the case is. But, you know, it's a big one. It's a big one for our folks. They need to be able to obviously have a living wage, right? Especially the work that they're doing. And there's ways to get creative with wages and even the next one, which is benefits and safety nets. So the next slide, I'll go into more details of what type of benefits we've identified if it's not just wages, okay? We also have wraparound support systems for our teaching fellows. So we believe in personal development and professional development. So we have a whole department and team where we have life coaches and workshops. And I'll get into more detail about what the wraparound supports are. But we did a survey with all of our staff several years ago. And we asked them like, why are you leaving? What's going on in your life? And we found that they're dealing with things like food insecurity. They don't have access to motor vehicle. They don't have access to gas. They're dealing with domestic violence. They're dealing with mental health, right? There's a lot of things that our staff are dealing with that are very similar to our kiddos. And if we don't meet their basic needs, just like our kiddos, right? How can we expect them to stay and to continue to show up for our kids or stay working with us? So we did the survey and we're constantly asking our folks, what do you need? What are the barriers and what can we do? What can we leverage to help with these wraparound supports? Another yeah, but section, right? Like, yeah, it'd be great to do life coaching, but how do we do that, right? So I'll give you some strategies that we use as well, right? Because it can be hard. Looking at a stay survey, right? Before they even leave, say like, hey, how's it going? What can we do to support you? What are you needing? What are your struggles? What are your barriers? We can be a little bit more proactive, right? With asking these questions. So another thing we're looking at is supportive oversight. So we only have so many humans, right, to support our line staff, right? And we got to be efficient. So we really started to look at our structure, right, of, you know, senior liaison, site coordinator, teaching fellow. And we have a large region, but how do we best support the teaching fellow? Is it according to location? Is it you know, age group, right? Do you do K through 3rd, middle school, high school, or whatever the case is? Like, how do you really structure the support system and mapping out the year-long support structures? So that way, if there's any wiggle room for efficiencies, and to increase quality, right? So we have these fancy charts and spreadsheets and really starting to dive really deep into that piece. I didn't want to bore you with that today because it was very specific to our agency, but it really goes to show that there are things in our control that we can start looking at to best support our people at the ground level. Accessible application onboarding, which I talked about earlier, right? Simplifying that application, helping folks with that, and then the whole onboarding, because there's so many trainings and background checks, and it's just a mess. So we have to really put our folks first and adapt to really supporting that process. And then constantly getting teaching fellow input or our staff input. And we're doing this now more than ever. And I'll kind of show you some strategies in a bit on how we get constant input on the social media posts, right? The email communications we're sending out, the training that we offer, right? The support system, everything that our foundation does that really is the touch points with our work staff is getting input and honest input from our workforce. So moving along. So the next slide is about benefits we've identified. And we've identified that depending on what season of life you're in, there's certain benefits that may entice you more than others, right? So I'm a mom. I'm like, you know, being able to have healthcare paid for or maybe a childcare voucher may work better for me as opposed to maybe someone who's not a mom and needs gas money or whatever the case is, right? So right now as we try to stay above minimum wage, and then we have the California required sick pay, but we don't have, besides our training and personal development things, like we don't have other benefits. And so we want to look at talking to our partners about, you know, maybe we have per month or like a savings account that per month we can, and they can select what type of benefits they want to be a part of. Is it retirement? Is it PTO? Flexible scheduling, childcare, tuition assistance, scholarships, right? Everyone has different needs. And these are examples of possible benefits that we want to look at for our staff. Because sometimes wages aren't always doable because of unions or California state law, right? California state law doesn't allow you to go up and down with people's wages as you want willy-nilly. So folks may be less committed to, you know, committing to higher wages. But if you could do a sign-on bonus or a referral bonus, right, for referring their friends and for them staying, there is, you know, a lot more to that equation. So these are just examples of benefits. And then wraparound supports. So examples of the wraparound supports we provide for our staff is a big one is the free life coaching, right? Sometimes, so our staff may say like, hey, I can't continue working because I'm overwhelmed and I have too much going on. Or our life coach was like, okay, let's go talk to a life coach. Let's talk about time management, right? Or prioritization, right? Let's talk about the yeah buts in our brain. Let's talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. You know, and so that way they could really think through their situation. Let's talk about money management, right? If you're not making enough money, okay, let's talk about money management and getting into detail, like where are your bills at? How can we reduce the bills? Hey, here's this program or that program that can help reduce your bills. So that way, if they love working with us, we can find ways to keep them working, you know, working with us. And there's goal setting and all kinds of stuff that can happen with the life coaching. We have a care fund, which is like an emergency fund. So we'll have staff who will reach out to us and they're like, I'm homeless and I don't know where I'm going to get my next meal. Right? That is the reality. And so we have these cases, they'll either reach out to us personally. Maybe they're having a performance kind of thing going on at site, and we dig deeper when we realize they have, hey, they're, you know, Malia is showing up late for the last week or two. But as you dig deeper, like, oh, Malia is homeless right now and she hasn't eaten since yesterday. Let's try to get her some support. So we have a fund and we have a team that really looks at what are the needs coming in. And then we do our best to try to support our staff, whether that's a gift card or a Grubhub or a meal or whatever it is, paying that bill, right? Maybe they need their registration on their car paid for and they can't get to work because of that. And the next slide, I'll kind of talk about how we figure out ways to do this. But money management workshops is a big one and is a popular one for our staff. social meetups. So this weekend they're doing grad hats and they're decorating their graduation hats together and celebrating together to build a culture amongst each other, right? We have a first gen leadership cohort. So first gen college students have their own set of needs, and we put a program together where they're a part of a cohort and a leadership cohort and really addressing their specific needs. So in your community, you may find a lot of your workforce are similar in one way. For us, because they're mostly college students, it's the first gen college student, right? And then you could put a cohort and develop them and get them in front of, you know, motivational speakers that they can relate to, right? And different tips and tricks and access to different kind of like workshops and things like that. So that one has been popular. We have a second part-time job list. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but if folks can't make enough with us, but if we can find partnerships with folks who aren't going to steal our people, where they can work on the weekend or over the summer or in nights or pick up gigs, it can really be a win-win situation. And that's a popular one for our folks. And then we have badge discounts. So we have community partnerships where they said, you know, we have across the street from one of our universities, there's a Mexican restaurant. And they're like, hey, if any of your people bring their badge and they don't know where their next meal is coming from, we'll give them a free meal on us, right? So it's badge discounts like that. It could be, you know, tune-ups for your car, right? Discounts on your cell phone plan, a lot of different badge discounts. And that doesn't have to come from your agency, right? That can come from the community investing in your people, right? So I'm going to get to the next slide on how we go about kind of implementing some of these things, because there's a lot of yeah buts there, right? So we have what we call Dream Ambassadors. Our Dream Initiative is at kind of the personal wraparound supports department for our staff. And so we have staff who are wanting to really grow within the agency, develop their leadership skills. And so we have these Dream Ambassadors, right, who go out to sites and provide resources to our sites, right? So it could be personal development workshops at a site or team building, because maybe one site is kind of dealing with the culture clash of teamwork, right? So you're developing your next gen leaders within your agency and giving them an opportunity to volunteer and develop themselves, and then also implement some of these wraparound supports. They're the ones who are organizing the meetup workshops, right? They can go out in the community and ask for donations from the community. Hey, we have a first gen cohort leadership. We have people we're trying to develop in the community. Hey, business. Hey, bank, Chase Bank. What are you going to do to help our people in our community? Okay, you're going to give us $4,000 so we could put this program together. Cool. Thank you. Right? There's people in our community, businesses, government, who are willing and should really be taking care of our own, right? So we don't have to do it alone. We have an internship program in our office as well. So it's on the admin and on the admin side. So the same, it's an opportunity for your line staff to come into your admin team and to learn more of the office, right? They like the office experience, whatever that means. And so you're developing them and you're exposing them to new opportunities. For us, because our folks are mostly college students, they get their upper division elective counted for. So ours are unpaid, unfortunately. But we do really invest in their development. So these are two ways you can get the input from your staff on your day-to-day what's going on. So Oscar, you have a TikTok. Well, our interns do our social media for us. They do the copywriting. They're fresh. They know what the people are looking for, right? So we'll have like a team of 3 interns who are doing our social media, and then our manager helps oversee it. So your new recruitment manager can get an intern, could be one of your current folks, right? Because they understand the needs. And so you're developing your leadership pipelines, you're getting input, and it's extra help. So I think every semester we have about 10 interns in our office. I get a government relations intern. They love it. They help me with advocacy and policy work and lights on and things like that. So recruitment's a big one. Marketing, social media is a big one. Our professional development and our personal development workshops, like it takes a lot. And so if you can, one, get the input from your interns and have them help you develop these new programs, then you're able to optimize the moment, because we all know we're all stretched thin, right? But if you can have an intern and create win-win situations, then you could really move some of this innovative work moving forward. And then alumni engagement is another one. And you'll see kind of later on, we're looking at developing an alumni association. Our alumni love the work that we do. They're very knowledgeable. So let's keep them engaged in the work that we do. They can help us recruit. They can help us find donations, fund development, right? Create new programs, volunteer, mentor our current staff. A lot of them love the first gen leadership cohort and love to come in and mentor and talk to our folks. So it's a huge area of opportunity to engage our alumni. You can have them volunteer and create their own board and kind of self-sustain themselves. And so you don't necessarily have to do it yourself, all of it yourself anyway, right? And like I said, community support, donations, grants, it doesn't all need to just come from your own bottom line to get this work done. It's a lot. I feel like I've been talking a lot. I'm checking on time, which we're doing good on time. Okay, so again, we're still a small group, so we're gonna stay in this small group. And if you can go into the Jamboard again, and we're gonna skip through the slides and we're gonna get to the ones with the lines, and we'll be on the first page. Let me see.
Emily, I just put the link in the chat, but just flagging there was a quick question in the chat box whenever you get a chance.
Oh, okay, let me see. What ratio of HR mentor staff, expanded learning staff do you recommend for making these types of wraparound supports happen? Oh, that's a good question. So Tara, if you don't mind coming off mute, if you're available, I'm curious, is she still in the room?
Hey, still here.
Yes, yay, awesome. Can you explain a little bit more so I can help answer?
Yeah, of course. So in my work at the CDE, one of the things that I get to do is try to work with school districts and counties to deal with various teacher shortages, which is why I'm so excited about this session you guys are offering. And I want to be able to get them to be concrete when they say that they are going to support their after school staff, and create a pipeline for their staff to education careers, as long as their staff are asking for that. And so I think, the wraparound support seem like a critical part of where you guys are seeing success.
Absolutely.
So like, if they're not going to be able to do that, they're just going to say, oh, we'll do these things, but then they don't dedicate any staff time to it. It's kind of like they didn't make any change at all, even if they say that they're making a change. So I want to make sure I can explain that to them, not try to catch them or whatever, but just be real. Like, what does it take to put this together?
That's a great question, Tara. And I don't know if you have already selected your second workshop, but in the second workshop, we're going to go into a lot more detail about the teacher pipeline strategies. And we're going to have conversations just like that, Tara, on brainstorming and thinking together, because that question, there's a lot, and it depends on the community and it depends on the partnerships. And so I think, yeah, that's hard. I mean, they're going to have to invest in Tara, what we did some work with the National Center for Teacher Residencies, which is, kind of really looked at as the guru of best practices when it comes to teacher residencies. And they helped us, and we worked along with Lupita and Ken and the team. And what we found was that you can have conversations about mutual savings when it comes to developing teacher pathways and retention, and they need to share on that savings, meaning you need some skin in this game. And there's different types of partnerships. So your county office of ed can invest, your school district should be investing, your university should be investing, and your community-based organization or employer, whoever that is, should be investing. And it's mutual, and we need to share. So there's Title I funding that they can look at, right? There's a lot of new teacher retention funding. I mean, there's a lot that can be done. And we found that community of practices amongst multiple stakeholders to support pathways work well. And you have regular meetings with your leadership teams to say, here's what's working. Here's what can, superintendent, we need you to bring this in, or we need your support here. HR department at your school district, this is where we need your support. County office of ed, this is what you're, bringing to the table. Universities will have their update. And so really it's a collective kind of effort, but there's layers to it because it's not always not everyone can, it's a big undertaking to do it at that level. So there's ways to grow incrementally to that point too. And we could talk about the different increments to get there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hear you about like, it makes sense to provide people a lot of local flexibility for deciding how to do it. But without some guidelines for people who've never done this work, I think they could be like completely off base. They'd be like, oh yeah, we have 400 expanded learning staff. So like, you know, Carol can handle that, you know, for part of her job.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So that I
Right?
see what you're saying now with the, so it takes, we're working on this ourselves because, but it would take like a coordinator to really pull it off. And depending on what the scope of it, are you looking high school to teacher resident and actual like teacher placement? Are you only looking at teacher or credential and residency? So it also depends on how much of the pipeline we're looking at.
Totally. Thank you
So-
so much. That's really a helpful start. I'm absolutely planning to come this afternoon, but of course have multiple conflicts. So I will be studying the recordings that you guys provide later on in the month very much. And thank you to Lupita about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's stay connected and have a follow-up meeting because there are some tools we've identified, I think, that we could be sharing with folks statewide that we've learned and could possibly help too. So let's stay connected. And thank you for the question. And thank you everyone else for sticking along if this didn't make any sense to you. Okay, awesome. I'm looking at the chat box. Okay, so going into now with the employment best practices, and the HR is a piece of it, like how much manpower do you need to actually get this work done, right? And so let's go to slide, I'm on the Jamboard. What slide are we on? I think it is slide, oh, I can't see it because that little, I think it's slide 18. Is that where everyone else is at on the Jamboard? So I'm trying to get back recentered. So we're going to go into what employment strategies are you all implementing, right, at your agency? So while they're actually with you, what are some strategies that you all are working on?
Mine on slide 2, Malia. Should I go to 18?
But yeah, let's go to 18. I didn't know how many, we didn't know how many folks were going to be in these workshops. So I just made a bunch just in case.
Okay.
So I went ahead and just put everyone on slide 8, and then I'll just be deleting the duplicates since we were able to be in a main room together.
Yay, thank you, Lupita. Awesome. So I'm looking at the chat, and Oscar, you had said that you have a referral program, right? Do you feel comfortable sharing more about that?
Yes. Before we started having more social media presence, we just reflected that we have a large number of frontline staff that are part of local universities, community colleges, organizations. And so we started doing an internal staff referral program where a already employee can recruit staff and get monetary compensation for the number of staff that not only gets hired, but also stay within the organization within a certain period of time. Generally, it's around 2 to 3 months. And so, we have a recruitment person that will be able to keep track of all that and, communicate with the employees. So that has been working really well because it's generally word of mouth, right? Our college students go have different courses every semester, so they meet different people, and people are always looking for jobs. A lot of them are part of, liberal studies departments, education departments that usually connect with students with a similar career path that helps us out. And we've always been, a great entry level position to just get your foot in the door in the education system here in Sacramento with school districts and site partnerships.
Thank you, Oscar. And is that managed by your recruitment manager?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And this is the reason I'm asking these questions is because referral programs are great, but they can be hard to manage sometimes. How do you all go about tracking? And when do you pay? Do you know a little bit more insight to like the logistics of
Yes.
it?
The majority of our work, we utilize Google Drives, the Google Suites. Everything goes through that. We have, I have like 4 or 5 of them, and through that we have a recruitment spreadsheet where everyone in the executive team has access to, and that's where we keep track so we can be on the same page. We also have like our internal like paycheck system, payroll system, that also has a tool in regards to this, so we can keep track. So we have multiple ways to keep track of this, but it also is just a lot of communication and collaboration. We have a lot of meetings here at the office, and we're just very detailed when it comes to communication with our employees, because we have to. We have close to 500 frontline staff alone, so it's very challenging as it is to keep track of just information that we need from them.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. And it goes to show that data collection and management to support our staff can be cumbersome, but so needed, right? It's like having to invest a little bit more into that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Beth, please unmute.
Thank you. I have to jump off, and so I just wanted to share a couple of things, and this is more for the rural areas. So one of the recruitment tools that we've been using this year is providing a bonus, and that's been a pretty hefty bonus, but we've had the funding this year to do it because of our COVID money that we didn't spend last year. And so anyway, we've been providing for the instructors that complete the apprentice program that we created. They get $1,000 bonus. There's a heavy lift that goes along with it. So not everybody completes it, and not everybody's interested in completing it. But part of it is, the assistance in getting them to pass the para test, to become an instructor, and then the professional development around the CQI and the California standards, and also learning how to develop lesson plans using the 5Es format and that kind of thing. And so that's been really great for getting brand new staff quickly up to speed while they're working on the job. So that's been a great recruitment tool for us, that there is a carrot at the end of doing this, all of this professional development. So just to throw in there, you were talking about the like, what are the barriers? What makes your brain say, but? Well, one of the things that I struggle with, and I know that my administrative staff struggles with, is the but what ifs around what Michael Funk was talking about. Like our school district right now is saying that they're not going to use the ELOP funds at all, because they're afraid of the what ifs. But the other big what if for my immediate administrative staff is, what if we invest all this time into the development of staff and they leave? They just use it as a stepping stone. That's always a big what if. I try to take the stance of, but we get them for however long we get them. There's always going to be turnover, but hey, if we get somebody that stays and continues to advance, then that it's worth going through 2 or 3 to get there. And I have to jump off for another meeting, but thank you, Malia.
Thank you so much, Beth.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that's great. I love the idea of a bonus. Whatever, if that's a signing bonus or a staying on bonus. And that's something I'm going to bring to our team too, because getting through the trainings alone, right, to have that carrot at the end of at the kind of end of the training may be helpful, and it could be something could be temporary too, right? It's not so committal as higher wages. So I love that idea. And at the end, we'll go into the yeah buts, but I think the two, right? The districts and not wanting to utilize the funding, and then the fear of investing in folks and taking all this time for them just to leave. So we'll talk through that in a little bit. Any other ideas or thoughts from the group of what you all are doing or things you've heard and are interested in? Yeah, Anne, please.
I put it in the chat, and I apologize for joining late. I had another meeting, so I'm jumping in, but I'm super interested in this. We've been exploring grow your own programs, including working with the Reach Institute here in the Bay Area to build apprenticeship model programs. We've been thinking about it, especially because we're expanding our through universal pre-K. We're working with our local preschools as well, and thinking about how do we get more people into the field, particularly folks that look like and are from our communities, look like our students, are part of our community, members of our community. And so we're looking at these grow your own programs. Like, so, and Reach, I'm pretty excited about. They've got the opportunity for folks that, if you've got a high school degree or above, they can then, while working in, at least if they're working at least 15 hours a week with kids, they can be doing an apprenticeship model. So you guys may have talked about this earlier, but they could be getting the time together can be towards course credit, and then they could be working online, working towards their degree programs. And we're excited about it because we want to give that opportunity for our staff, whether our instructional aides, our paraprofessionals, or folks at our preschools, to get that credential, get that academic opportunity and grow within while they're still working for us. So it's an attractive recruitment opportunity, but it's also, once you're there, it really helps people stay and feel like we're committing to growing them as professionals. And we also have been thinking about how do we spread the word, to building a campaign to really communicate with our families about, hey, are any of you interested in working in the childcare space? Have you thought, or in early childhood or in education? Here are some opportunities. It's not, you have a high school degree, great. And you think you can't do it? No, there are opportunities. Here's where you could go. Here's who you could call. Here's how we could get you into the system. Oh, and then there are opportunities to get your credential, your degrees, get credits and units, and build a career path in this. We think that people may leave, there will be turnover, there will be transition, but overall, as a community, if we're building more people that are capable and have the qualifications, we're ultimately going to have a better pool, and long-term that pays it forward to ourselves to have great folks.
Yes, I was like, preach. Yes, I love it. All the things, right? Collaborative partnerships, really opening up and getting out into the community and diversifying, who we're bringing in. And I love, Anne, how you're saying it's like, come in and talk to us. Like, let's just chat and let's just slowly build out into your career. Because sometimes it can feel overwhelming, right? If we go to them and be like, do you want to be a teacher? And it's like, that's a lot of commitment. Or do you want to, get your child permit or child teacher, what is that? It's a teacher permit, right? Teacher permit. I think that's what it's called for the
early childhood. Yeah, the early childhood
permit, yeah.
We'll just call it early childhood permit. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, and I know that there's different layers, but that can feel cumbersome. Like going back to school, that's a lot. But just talking to someone who they trust and are friendly and are really taking the time to get to know them and their needs and their passions can really pay off. And it can be, scary, I think, for folks to think about doing this work differently, but it needs to be done as well, right? And so we find with our university partners, they're really excited about it, and we have to get people committed to really going there to create this hybrid, clinical experience in after school and, the coursework, and not just piling it on top of each other. Because I think one thing that we think about when partnering with universities is they'll want to recruit from our people, but they don't want to think about co-creating programs that really is synergetic and reduces how much time folks need to actually complete their degrees or permits, how much money it takes. There's a lot that kind of goes into that. And I don't know what you have going on later, but I would love for you to join the workshop later this afternoon, because we're going to talk specifically more about programs like the one you were explaining and how we could go bigger and do it more and learn from each other on more of a technical side too.
It's on my calendar. I have a conflict for part of it, so I'm probably gonna have to jump in either. I can't remember whether it's early or late, but yeah, super excited about that. Also, would love to think as well about this. How do you implement it effectively, right? Like, I really like the idea of kind of let's do outreach, and then people have a place to call and they have someone to like kind of case manage them. They're like, all right, tell me what you got. What do you want to do? Let's figure out. And I don't know how we staff for that. And I've actually been thinking about that could be something that if someone in our community was doing that, if we had a nonprofit organization or somebody that was committed to that, that could actually be that sort of resource center. I'd love that. I worry about how we can staff that effectively at our district. We can get a list of all the opportunities. We can develop a little marketing campaign and get it out to folks, and our outreach coordinators can be reaching out to families to sort of spark interest. But I mean, the HR team at Ravenswood is 2 people, and that's not like, there's nobody to be able to do this kind of counseling. And I think it's a real need, because it's complicated and it's really easy, especially if, you're home, you've got a kid and you've got life. It's really hard to figure out how to actually navigate this stuff. So that feels like a real need.
Absolutely. And that's what we found with our work. And that's why your community organizations are great partners. And that's why the collective, right? So your districts, universities need to all find ways to pitch in to fund a position like that. Because also, if it comes from the university, especially, and districts are really overwhelmed with so many other things going on right now. But if that coordinator comes from the university, a lot of our people are like, I don't belong. That's scary. I'm not a university person. And we tell people, hey, you have a great coach but it has a university title and name and who they come from. And the people they don't even take the first step to talk to your caseworker, right? Your career centers are great. They're not going to go. You're going to get the same people who go. And those are the hard discussions we have to have on a local basis. That's what I have to tell a lot of our university partners, and they're great. But you can get somebody at a church, right, who is a trusted person, who is already counseling the community, and see like, hey, can you fund a position there to really help you talk to folks, and it feels like a safe place to have conversations? Is it a group of folks? It really depends on the community and what's embedded in the community, but agreed. And we've seen a lot of success when it comes from like a CBO like us, right, that can kind of help get them in, help do the case workload, and then, okay, go talk to Anne, right, at this school district, go talk to Maria at the university, and then they can feel more comfortable moving forward. That's where we found a lot of the success. We're looking at how do you use ELOP funding to fund a position that would be almost like a coordinator position, and they would help. So I'll give you an example. What if you had someone who is going to be a retiring teacher, and they're like, hey, do you want to stick on and help kind of coordinate between regular day and after school, and help create observation forums and after school that also matches teacher TPEs or teacher prep or ECE requirements, whatever it is, to really start streamlining that process, help integrate, help with quality and after school. So really it would be like a coordinator who is developing their folks, but also kind of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So everything I've heard from the CDA is like we could use ELOP to kind of use that position to help with pathway work and, obviously with CQI and after school. So in the next session, we'll look at teacher performance expectations and a crosswalk with quality standards and competencies in after school, and some possible tools we can use to start bridging the 2 too. I geek out on this stuff. I'm sorry, y'all, but it's exciting to see multiple partners really see the value in our workforce. So even if you don't have those partnerships yet, and actually I'm going to go to the next slide because we're going to run out of time. So the next section of the presentation is about offboarding, which to Beth's point can feel like, why am I going to focus on offboarding people out of my agency? But really, if folks can see a path forward, they're more likely to stay, right? And that our foundation has always been based on investing in our people. They're never meant to stay with us, right? We want to help them go because we just didn't have enough full-time positions for these people to make a living wage, right? So it just wasn't our strategy. And so how do we develop them as people, as professionals, as individuals, so that they see the value in developing their career while they're with us and are willing to make it work. Because yeah, maybe the pay isn't quite what In and Out is making, but guess what? I'm developing my career and my skill sets and my resume, and I'm networking and I have people who really want to see me succeed, right? So offboarding, I'm not going to go too much into this section just because in the next workshop in the afternoon, I'll be going and doing a deeper dive in all this like education pathway work and more specific strategies. But what we found with offboarding, that folks do tend to stay longer with us because they see the value in developing their career with us. So it is counterintuitive, but we've seen a lot of return on investment when it comes to retention and recruitment and creating natural pathways of having large groups of folks coming in and staying with us instead of recruiting one-off folks, right, all the time and needing a person or a recruiter to constantly do that. But if you can build a big funnel to have people constantly coming through your agency and being developed while they're with you, and then they build this loyalty towards you where they want to continue supporting you, right? So what we found was that after school is a great way for future educators, whatever that looked like, or even future police officers, future nurses, is there's the cultural competencies that are developed by working in the communities and with our kids that cannot be learned in a classroom. Right? If you're studying to be a police officer and you're taking all this coursework, you don't know what it's really like to deal with a middle schooler who is having, you know, a little bit a bad day, right? And has their aunt, uncle kind of coming to after school to say, why are you telling my kid, right? Why are you telling my kid things? That's like real life and every day of what our community leaders deal with, our teachers, our educators, anyone. So a big leverage for us as the workforce partners of expanded learning is our community leaders are learning cultural competencies because they come a lot of times from the communities and they want to stay there. And that is a leverage piece that why we should be at the conversations when it comes to workforce development in a plethora of different kind of conversations, whether that's any kind of educator, expanded learning, K through 12 leadership, university leadership, any pathway work. Healthcare is a huge one, and surveying our alumni, like 6,000 of them, mostly go into education. The second one is health and human services. When you look at workforce data, health workers is number one and education is number two. So there's a lot of money and investment in people looking at these strategies. So if you want to really zoom out with your workforce innovations and strategies, cultural competencies are a big leverage for us. We had our first rural teacher residency cohort just wrap up this year, where we're really starting to dig deeper into what does a residency or credential program look like. And Lupita is going to drop in some links of resources in the chat box when it comes to all things kind of teacher educator pathway resources for you to look at and to share with partners if they're also interested in this type of work. I had mentioned before, we're looking at alumni association because a lot of them are in education, right? They're future teachers, they're superintendents, they're principals, they're, you know, everywhere leading in our communities. And if we can, and a lot of times they believe in the work that we do and still have a love. So use your alumni network to help you with these conversations, to advocate for the work that you do to really build out pathway work. And then a few different resources is Education Trust is a highly trusted, for lack of a better term, agency that puts out reports on best practices for education. And the foundation, we were written into one of their studies, and there's other models. It's called a natural fit. And really looking at linking how after school expanded learning is a natural fit for teacher preparation. So great report, great tool. There's also, we did a paving the way event that was virtual. So there's a YouTube video to watch us and superintendents and university partners talk about the model. And then there was a great report that was generated by the CAN team and Glenn Price group on what were the recommendations to move education pathway work forward. And then data collection, which we talked about, is a big area of opportunity. Not only for your agency, but to leverage grant money and funding, data collection will be big. Okay. I feel like I've talked so much. I'm sorry, team. I know you came here to hear me talk, but it's a lot. And then this here is just an example. And like I've mentioned before, the next workshop that I do in the afternoon, we're going to look at the whole pathway, and we're going to look at high school all the way through becoming a credentialed teacher, and different places along that pathway that you can build out partnerships and start doing teacher pipeline work. And we're going to have specific conversations to local conversations. So I'm excited to do that in the next session, but just wanted to show you kind of what we'll be looking at in the next workshop. And we only have 12 minutes left. It flew by, and we had folks kind of in and out throughout the whole workshop. So now is the time to kind of circle back around, and I invite folks who've been here and we've heard them along the way. What were the yeah buts that came up for you when you heard the ideas? Like, what ideas that you heard in strategies today triggered you to think yeah but, and what was that? If you feel comfortable sharing by unmuting or putting in the chat box, I'm just curious what naturally came up for us today.
I'm not sure if this aligns well, but I've actually done kind of like an internal SWOT analysis where the my buts have always been of the challenges, right? An idea comes up like you mentioned, right? But we also think about some of the challenges. So my yeah buts are just I don't know, the not the fear, but like the concern that the economic market is going to continue to adjust and change, that will impact us. And it won't matter of the funding. So what I'm thinking about is gas prices. They continue to stay the same or increase. Minimum wage, if for whatever reason the state decides to increase that, I mean, you know, that impacted expanded learning a lot. Also dependency on, you know, our LEAs or districts when regards to their hiring process. Their hiring process is pretty stringent, I'm assuming for a lot of you as well, in regards to, you know, just a lot of them, the background checks have to go through their systems that take a little bit longer because they go through like their actual paraeducator positions. The NCLB, I've always been an advocate that, you know, maybe in the past, but now, you know, the NCLB should be adjusted because it doesn't pertain a lot to what the expanded learning practitioner does with students. And so I feel like that's also maybe an opportunity because we've lost a lot of people in the hiring process because of the NCLB. And then districts have like their own protocols of like, if you don't pass it, you can only take it in 3 months. And by that time, they're going to find other jobs. Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this aligns again, but those are kind of like my buts as we talk today.
Oscar, thank you so much for your presence today and being vulnerable. I think a lot of people have the thought of like gas prices and minimum wage and cost of living, all these changes, like how do you innovate in this craziness? So I just want to say that you're so validated. I think we're all feeling that way. One, there's a couple of things about LEAs and NCLB. So and you all are a nonprofit, correct? Right? Yeah. So we proctor our own NCLB, and we work with an agency to create our own test questions as well. So one, our folks do not have to wait. So they can retake it that next day or the same day because we get to proctor it. Now there is a cost associated with it, but I'll tell you the return on investment has been insane because you can also proctor your new folks coming in and you can get ahead of the hiring process. You don't have to wait 3 months for the LEA to do it again, right? Now there's some, you have to find the right agency that will allow you, but as a nonprofit, you can proctor the para. It's free for our folks as well. So most places you have to pay, understandably so. So you may want to look into being able to proctor the NCLB. We'll make sure that my contact information is shared, and I can actually share with you the agency we work through. Background checks. So we're also starting to look at doing fingerprints in-house and doing our own fingerprinting because that is just one of those delays, and some of them are natural and out of our control. So we're looking at a cost analysis, like how quickly can we get people fingerprinted? We started doing what we call a riot calendar. So it's recruitment, interviewing, onboarding, training. And it's a whole team of people who come together, put the calendar together, and start recruiting earlier on for your bulk hiring season. So that way it can help with the time adjustments, because you're right, those are real and it really does hinder. Now, there's only so much you can do during the regular kind of hiring season. We have to wait for folks. But we've done where we try to hire 5-day availability subs, because subs are always needed, and then they can get plugged in as soon as an opening comes up to help with that time frame piece. But those are just a few things that we look at. They're reality, but we have to commit to trying to work around them, right? And I know that we're all doing our best. So I would encourage you, Oscar, is to take this back to your team, right? And have an honest conversation about the elephants in the room, so we can actually address the elephants instead of dancing around them, hoping that they change, right? And as far as gas prices and wages and things like that, I mean, knowing that things will probably cost more can be and should be a part of your conversations when you're strategically developing new ideas, right? So bring that to the table and in your agenda items and talk through those ideas. I don't know if you all have the ability to do some of these with your team, but you can. I think everyone's supervisor is willing to at least listen to, hey, I identified that there's some barriers here. There's some yeah buts here. But can we have a strategic conversation around this? Like, let's just take a moment to actually address these things instead of just flying by the fleet of our pants and hoping it all comes together, right? Because the reality is, if we don't address it, we're not going to find people anyway, right? What we're doing is not working, right? All of us have workforce issues. So anyway, I can go on. And Oscar, again, thank you, because these are same conversations we're having too. Does anyone else feel comfortable unmuting to share? One thing I'll also encourage this group is, a lot of times we think things can't be changed because we're dealing with big entities and big education entities like K through 12 and institution of higher education and HR in California. But if you dig a little deeper and actually ask, what does the actual laws say, or what can we actually do? You will find that there's a lot more wiggle room than we actually think. And folks have just been doing the same thing for the longest times, like NCLB proctoring. And then you realize, like, oh, we could do that. Like, oh, it could be different, right? We've seen that with our teacher preparation alignment, and we went to the Ed Code and Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and we found out, like, oh, there is a lot more wiggle room technically, right? There's a little bit of a window there. Like, how do we work in that space of possibility? The good thing is that we're all in a desperate times for a lot of different reasons. And now is the moment that folks are willing and are forced to innovate. I know it's easier said than done, but it can be done, right? You all are here because you believe in this work, and we've heard great, amazing ideas that you all have. So I just encourage you to continue pushing and just asking, what if? Like, what if we did this, or what if we could do that? Could we, right? And if you hear a no, don't be afraid to ask, may I ask why not? Is it because that's historically how we've always done it? Or is it like literally by law, we cannot do this, right? And it can be hard, but I challenge you to go for it and ask those questions, because it's gonna take innovation and a willingness to try it to meet this moment. Because if we don't, this money will go away, right? If we don't take advantage and be able to optimize this funding, then we don't know if they're going to continue to invest in it, right? So we only have 3 minutes left. I get a little rah-rah. It's the advocate in me. I can't help it. but I hope that you learned some things today. I hope you identified some of those barriers that came up for you in your mind and thinking through, are those actual barriers or are they just perceived barriers, right, of doing this work? Empowering yourself that your voice and elevating the voice of our workforce is needed and it matters, and our work matters in the grand scheme of things, right? Like we deserve a seat at the table, and if the table isn't there, you're not invited, create your own table and do what you got to do, right, to move it forward. Because there's a lot of great opportunity, magic, and leaders like you all, right, moving this work forward. So let me do this. So my contact information is on this slide, and then we'll make sure it's in the resource folder. I didn't have access to it earlier, so I couldn't put it in there. But if you have any other thoughts or questions on, or want to think through some more of these ideas, like email me or text me. The foundation, we love learning from you all and helping any way that we can. And if you're excited to learn more about teacher pipeline or pathway work, I encourage you to come to the next workshop this afternoon, and we'll really drill down, which I nerd about, on creating pathway work and looking at some very specific and local examples and talking through it together. Awesome. I think that's it. I'm going to give you 2 minutes back of your time. And does anyone have any